Alright, what's up guys? So before I get into the following video, I just want to make things very clear that this video, I recorded it several months before I finished editing it at this point. And I've had plenty of time since then to reflect on all the things I've said in the video. And I've had plenty of time to reflect on everything that people have said in response to my comments in that video. And basically what I'm trying to say is that from the point I recorded the video to the point to me finishing editing the video, which is like a couple of days ago at this point, is that I've realized that I don't know as much as I thought I did, because you get to a certain point where you think that you know a lot about a topic, but then the more and more you start researching that topic, learning about that topic, getting other people's perspectives, you start to realize like, wow, I don't actually know as much as I thought I did. And so that's basically what I want to say, is that I've had time to reflect on everything that this following video is about. And I just want to say that I've grown as a person since I've recorded this video. And basically, I mean, no disrespect to anybody mentioned in the video. I know I come off very, rude and arrogant at some points in the video. And I just want to say that I apologize for that in advance. And that's no longer me at this point in time. But that's just what I want to make clear, is that I'm still putting the video out there because I make some really great points in the video, and I have a lot of experience and I know what I'm talking about in the video. But like I said, there's obviously other people's perspectives to the exact same thing that you know that you might not realize. And so that's kind of what I want you to get from this video, because I realized as I was doing more research on this topic, I was like, yeah, I don't know as much about the bench press as I thought I did. So basically the video is about bench pressing. It's about breathing and bracing your core during the bench press. Basically what I learned is that breathing for the bench press is different from squatting. Core bracing was the first thing that I learned how to do when it came to weight training in the gym. And that's how I was taught to do everything in the gym, was core bracing. So, you know, when you do a flat bench press, core brace. When you back squat, core brace. Front squat, core brace. And, you know, basically everything you do in the gym, you core brace to a certain extent. And as I did more research, I realized that the breathing in the bench press is different. But from the videos that I've seen of these people who do these different cues for the breathing in the bench press, they always breathe into their stomach and they essentially core brace. So that's why I'm kind of, not confused, but I'm kind of like, my experience plus these other people's experience, they go hand in hand, but it's still different. So in a way, I'm still correct about the things that I talk about in this video, but on the other hand, the other people that I'm talking about are also correct in what they mentioned in the video. So you'll see in the video, because I got some clips that I pop up in the video for reference, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But it's just it's like wow, you really don't know stuff until you start researching it more, and you're like, wow, I honestly don't know anything. But yeah, that's just what I wanted to say before we get into the video, because I recorded this video a long time ago. So I hope you guys enjoy the video.
Here's 2 simple methods you can use to learn how to brace your core correctly. For this first one, take a light kettlebell and place it on top of your belly button. Let the weight sink into your stomach. Your only cue then, push the bell away. When you activate your core muscles properly with a brace, you'll actually see the bell rise. Now your goal is to be able to push it away and keep it away for at least 10 seconds, but this is proper core bracing for lifting. The second way to learn how to brace is called the sandwich drill. You're going to clasp your hands around your sides like this. Then take a breath in a way that expands your stomach laterally into your hands. You'll actually feel your stomach push your hands away. This is called a diaphragmatic breath. Then stiffen your core like someone is about to punch you right in the stomach. If you're doing this correctly, you should not see your chest rise and fall at all. Breathing correctly when benching? Let's learn from 11-time world champion powerlifter Jen Thompson. The idea is to take a big breath and feel your chest rise as high as possible before you start the lift. This will be different than a squat, where you take a breath into your stomach, expanding in a 360-degree manner before descending. With the bench, we want to take all your air into your chest as you create full body tension, because that's where the action of the lift occurs. This is why wearing a belt usually isn't recommended for bench. To practice, don't take a shallow breath. Doing so creates a small amount of pressure and doesn't expand your chest much. Rather, take a really big breath through your mouth and even sneak in more through your nose. Doing so will really lift your chest up high. The more pressure you can create in your chest, the more stable your bench will be, similar to benching off a sponge versus a now hard board. Jen will perform 2 to 3 reps and then stop to take another huge breath at the top, set her shoulders, and finish the set. This breathing technique is what Jen used recently to set a new world record at 322 pounds.
All right, what is up, YouTube? It's your boy Jose and Ivan, the steroid stuffers, back with another video. And in today's video, I just wanted to talk about how the bench press is a lot more complicated and complex than people think, and I just want to talk about it. I've made a comment on an Instagram reel a couple weeks ago, and it was a video of some guy talking about how he was showing somebody in his class all of his cues on how to perform a bench press. And it was a great video. I'm not hating on it. It was a perfect video and his cues were great. But the only thing that really stuck out to me was the fact that during one of his cues, he told one of his the bench presser that they need to breathe in before they bench press. And then that was literally the only part in the video that he mentioned about breathing, and that was it. I looked at the comments in his video, and everybody in the comments had the exact same question. They said, "Oh, when does she breathe out? Can she breathe again? How long is she holding her breath for during this bench press?" And so me realizing that all these people had the exact same comments in the comment section, I decided to answer their question. And I said, what you're going to want to do is follow all the cues that the guy said in the video, because like I said, it was a great video. You're going to follow his cues, and then when you breathe in, like he said, you breathe in before you do the bench press. You drop the bar on your chest. And then if you want to, you can breathe. You can either breathe out or breathe when you're done with the bench. So think of it this way. I'm bench pressing, right? I unrack it. I breathe in and brace my core. That's exactly how the bench press should look. And that's what the guy forgot to mention about in the video, and that's what people had comments about. So that's what I told people. I said, basically, this is what you're going to want to do, this whole movement that I just showed you guys right now. And there's 2 ways you can do it. The first one that I just showed you, or the second one where you do this. You pretend I'm unracking it. You breathe in, brace your core. Like that. And you can see, you know, I didn't breathe out through the rep. I breathed out as I finished the rep. And so those are the 2 ways that you can use the breath in bench pressing. And so I answered everyone's comments in the video. And then the guy in the video, he said, you know, I was wrong and stuff like that, which doesn't matter. I'm not trying to get into that. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is all the people who responded to my one comment. And I just wanted to like kind of reflect on it so I can show you guys that everybody who responded to my comment in that video, they came off very arrogant and immature, childish, and they didn't know what they were talking about, because there was some, like, I wouldn't say big people, but there was people with obviously bigger fitness pages than I did in that video, and they were saying like, oh, you can't do this, you're doing that, you're wrong. And so I was like, I'm not wrong, you don't have to attack me and stuff like that. And you know, basically they wouldn't respond back to me because they know that I'm right. That's why. So let me find the video real quick.
Smell on the bar, so that turns the scaps on. Now we're gonna rev the Harley. So that's bomb into there. Our 3 first H's. Hips, head, Harley. Very important to get that last bit. You're gonna ask for help, which is me. 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna help the bar off. I'm not lifting it up and off, I'm just up and out.
3, 2, 1.
Good, hold there. You hold, which allows this humerus to sink into the socket. See the rotation? Awesome. That hides the armpits, looks after the shoulder. Now we're gonna hold our breath as well. Bring it down to the midline of the chest. Come back up. Good. Now what I'm watching as a spotter is I'm looking for unevenness. As soon as we flare, game over. We grind down the shoulder. And then my job is to put it back on. That was really good technique.
I found the video finally, and here's my original comment that I commented on this video. So I said, you're forgetting one very important thing about the breathe in. You breathe into your stomach and brace your core, like I showed you before, and then press the bar, meaning you press the bar up, releasing that breath as you push the bar up. Like that. And then, you know, the guy who posted the video, he said incorrect. And this is what really, you know, ticks me off about responding to stuff online, because I would like to, you know, get his side of, you know, everything. I want to see his insight, but he just said incorrect. He didn't elaborate on anything. And so I said, correct, actually. My wording may be confusing, but people have the internet to Google core bracing. So that's what I said. And then somebody else said, if you release your breath, you'll likely release your brace. You don't want to be doing that before the bar is racked or your body position is safe. Mid-rep ain't safe. I understand where this person's coming from, but like I said, if you are somebody who knows how to brace your core the correct way, the proper way, and you've been doing it for a really long time, meaning like 2+ years like I have, then breathing in and breathing out shouldn't really affect your core brace at all. It's not mid-rep, it's through those last couple reps. So you breathe in, like that, and you finish the rep. It's through that last rep. It's not mid-rep like this. No, it's not like that. It's through the rep. And I know that my wording in my original comment didn't come off that way. So that's what I clarified. And then I responded, I said, yes, that is correct. I realize my explanation is a little hard to understand, but as I have learned in my weightlifting classes, is that sometimes in those very last reps, if possible, you can breathe out slowly as that last rep is coming up, finishing the breath out as you finish the rep and re-rack the bar simultaneously, like I just showed you. And then somebody different said, so that was the end of that whole interaction, but somebody different said, nope, releasing breath loses inter-abdominal pressure. Yes, we know that already. I just explained that. Dramatically decreasing strength and stability while increasing injury risk. Yes, that is also true. You will not find any strength athlete that lifts the way you suggest, brother. So, like I said, this might just be an understanding thing because I worded my original comment weird. But like I said before, if you breathe properly through your brace and you know how to brace correctly, because the breathing is just a cue for the brace. And so once you're that advanced lifter and you know how to brace your core, the breathing really doesn't matter. And I'm not saying that in like you should just completely get rid of the breathing at all. I'm just saying that it's literally a cue for the brace. And so if you know how to keep that pressure as you're breathing out and breathing in, then that breathe out should not matter at all. And also something else that I forgot to mention in this comment is that your body is the strongest when it's in the locked out position like this. When your body's in this locked out position, your body is the strongest that it can possibly be. So that's why you push through the rep and you breathe through the rep, because that's where your power is coming from. Your power output is like that. And then your body, when it's in a lockdown position, you're very strong right there. And then you re-rack it. That's what I wanted to make clear to you guys. My wording came off weird, but what I'm telling you is correct. It's not wrong and it's not unsafe. Okay, here's another comment I have right here. Why would you hold your breath? And this one has, I think it has the most responses to it. And I responded, I said, it's for core bracing. You are supposed to breathe into your stomach, hold that breath while you press the bar, and then on the way up, you release that breath as you push up and out. Like that. And then the guy who posted the video, he responded to this comment again. He said, I breathe when the rep is finished, not through the rep. Changes the angle of the movement due to lowering of the rib cage. This is why I don't enjoy influencers. They teach incorrect tech. He said, I breathe when the rep is finished. Yes, you can breathe when the rep is finished, like I showed her, like this guy said. There's nothing wrong with that. Let me make something very clear here. So he said, it changes the angle of the movement due to lowering of the rib cage. Now pay attention here. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that breathing through the rep changes the angle of the rib cage when you're bench pressing? I'll give you 5 seconds. You're wrong. No, it's not because of that. It's because this guy, and I'm assuming, I'm not saying he does, but I'm assuming it's most likely because he's chest breathing. Because I tried it a couple of times myself. I did it on the floor. I did it on the bench too. And I would breathe through my stomach, because to cue the core brace, you're supposed to breathe into your stomach, not into your chest. And so this is what I'm assuming that he's referring to. Not through the rep, change the angle of the movement due to lowering of the rib cage. And so I gave it a try. I first breathed into my stomach like you're supposed to for the core brace. And then I put my hand right here on my chest. And every single time there was no change in my rib cage. There was no change in the height or the lowering of it. Maybe just like a slight little smidge, but it's nothing to the extent that this guy is talking about. And then I tried breathing through my chest. So I breathed into my chest. So as you can see, because I'm breathing into my chest, it does change the angle of the chest. So that's when I realized maybe this guy is breathing through his chest and he doesn't have enough knowledge to understand that the core brace, you breathe through your stomach for the brace. And then that's what allows you to bench press safely with the secure spine, so that way you don't injure yourself while bench pressing. And so I was like, maybe he just doesn't know that. He doesn't understand that. And I'm not trying to throw shade. I'm trying to defend my stance on this, because I know what I'm talking about, and I would not be giving out false information or information that would hurt people just for the sake of views and stuff like that. And so I responded, I said, yes, you were correct. You breathe when the rep is finished, but you cannot forget the core bracing, and breathing before the rep, like you said in the video, is also correct. I'm just letting you know that you left out core bracing. I was responding to him. I made a response like a week later because I had time to think and process about what he talked about, the rib cage thing coming up and down during the bench press. And so I said, actually, I just realized, coach, what you just said about the rib cage may be improper breathing technique, because if you breathe into your stomach rather than into your chest, you won't have to worry about that sudden change of the rib cage lowering when you breathe while bench pressing. Hope this helps. And then some other dude said, wrong though, you breathe into your chest, not your stomach, to reduce the range of motion, which is literally the stupidest thing I have ever heard. You know, I don't want to be rude or anything, but that is just the stupidest thing I ever heard. You breathe into your stomach, like I've demonstrated right now, to cue the core brace, and that has nothing to do with the angle or the movement of your chest. You do not want to breathe into your chest for any type of lifting movement in the gym, especially the bench press, because you're going to mess up your back and maybe your arms or something like that. And so when I just saw this comment, it just kind of like bamboozled me, flabbergasted me. I was like, is this satire or something? Because he said, wrong though, you breathe into your chest, not your stomach, to reduce the range of motion. That's like the exact opposite of what I'm trying to explain here. Breathing into your chest brings more range of motion, or whatever the hell he said. Yeah, it brings more range of motion. You're like wiggly and stuff like that, because like, look, breathe into your chest. So this reduces your range of motion? Yeah, okay, buddy. I responded and I said, no, you do not. That is improper breathing. Please do some research on core bracing, because like like I said, I'm trying to keep things respectful and nice, because I want to educate people on this. And then I responded, I said, you are supposed to breathe into your stomach when it comes to breathing in the gym and life in general. The correct and proper way to breathe is through your stomach and not your chest. And the way you can understand that is if you look at babies or children. The reason why they have a fat stomach all the time is because they're breathing through their stomach. That's why. Because that is the proper way to breathe. It's the natural way to breathe. Like I said, our whole lives we've been breathing into our chest when that isn't natural at all. Belly breathing is the optimal and natural way to breathe. And then here's more comments on that. And then this guy, he said, why are you commenting with both of your accounts trying to teach a wrong way of lifting? I respect your grind for your body, but stop trying to teach people something when you don't know anything about compound weights. Plus, you're going to Planet Fatness. They don't even have benches, they're only Smith machines, so respectfully keep your advice to yourself, or do some actual research before speaking. See, this right here is what I try to avoid when I'm responding to comments, because obviously this guy, he can't accept defeat. He can't, you know, say, hey, you know, what this guy is saying is right. He's right, and I have to admit that. He can't say that about himself. He can't admit that he's wrong about this, because he's over here insulting me, saying that I don't know anything about lifting, and then I go to Planet Fatness and stuff like that, and they only have Smith machines, and saying I respect your grind. No, obviously you don't respect my grind if you're going to insult me, saying that I know nothing about lifting and making fun of me just because I go to Planet Fatness. So I'm like, whoa, like what the hell, man? You just contradicted yourself in your own comment. I responded to that. I said, I know exactly what I'm talking about, and if you don't want to admit that what I'm saying is helpful, then you can just move on. I am not giving out bad advice at all. Just because I go to Planet Fatness, that doesn't mean I don't know what I'm doing. Don't make assumptions about people's knowledge on fitness just because of what gym they go to. Also, you clearly don't understand the core brace enough if you don't understand the belly breathing to cue the core brace. And then I said, you know, next time you want to make a silly comment, make sure you turn your mentions on, because it's kind of childish to make a comment and not allow people to respond to you. So, I'm just sick and tired of this commenting crap. You know, if people aren't going to be respectful or kind about something that I obviously know works and is legit, then I'm not going to want to respond to you. I know there's another, okay, this other guy. So that was the end of that second comment. there's this other guy. He has like a bigger fitness page and stuff like that. So this third comment that has a lot of replies to it, it says, don't hold your breath while benching. So I responded, I said, he left out a very important point. Before you bench press, you must breathe into your stomach and brace your core, as I've been saying. As the bar comes down, you hold your breath, but when you push the bar up and out, that's when you release the breath slowly, as that's where your power comes from. Because this was a later response that I got to the previous comments, so I had more time to reflect on it. So I made sure I put that into this comment. And then this bozo over here, he said, wrong. Belly breathing is beneficial for squats and deadlifts as it pulls the spine out of extension, which doesn't make any sense at all. The belly breathing is what cues the core brace. The belly breath is the cue into the core brace. And so extension is beneficial to the bench press. It pulls the spine out of extension. Extension is beneficial to the bench press. What, like, I don't understand that. Why would you want extension? Wouldn't you want to be in place? And then he said, inhalation naturally cues the spine into extension. Exhalation cues the spine into flexion, resulting in a loss of beneficial position. And then this bonehead said, by the way, I've benched 210 kilograms raw and 400 kilograms equipped. I'm not talking out of my ass. Coach in the video mentioned all good points. And like I said before, yes, the coach in the video did mention good points. He had good cues and everything like that. What I'm talking about is the belly breathing to cue the brace. He said inhalation naturally cues the spine into extension. Yeah, I wouldn't say that's wrong. Into spine into extension. Exhalation cues the spine into flexion. Okay, maybe. Resulting in a loss of beneficial position. So, yes, but like I said, if your core is braced properly, then the breathing shouldn't really matter at all. Like if you're an advanced lifter and you know how to brace your core and you know how to bench and like hold your position on a bench properly, then that little breath out on that last rep or that breath out when you're up at the top in locked out position, it shouldn't matter at all. That's why it hit me. I was like, this bozo has no idea what he's talking about. He's just some meathead on the internet who's like, oh yeah, I bench pressed 240 kilos. Look at me, I'm a badass. I know exactly what I'm talking about, dude. Yeah, you know what's next? Oh, I think I'm gonna do some heavy ass dumbbell curls like this with the 70 pounds, and I'm gonna go, oh yeah, I know what I'm talking about. I responded, I said, I understand, because I understand what he's talking about. I understand his points about the flexion and stuff like that. And I said, what I'm mentioning is core bracing. I realize my explanation may be hard to understand, but that is what is key to power in a bench press. The belly breathing I mentioned is just a cue for the core bracing. Also, I'm not talking out of my cheeks either, as core bracing is the reason why I can lift weight without injury. And then I said, the core brace is the first thing I learned in weightlifting, and it is the reason why I have confidence in anything I do in the gym, which is why I highly recommend it to others. If it doesn't work for you, then that's okay. Break your fucking back then. You don't need to blatantly say it's wrong, because in reality, everyone has their own right or wrong way to their own lifting techniques. He said, this isn't weightlifting, it's a bench press. What is that supposed to mean, dude? Is a bench press not weightlifting? So you're saying when you do this, you're not lifting weights? Oh, you're pressing weights. Oh, excuse me, buddy. And like I said before, the core brace relates to everything in the gym. It's not specific to just one thing, which, like I said before, is why I recommend it to everyone. I don't know what the spine flexion you're referring to is, but when I bench with my core brace, my spine feels very secure. And then he said, the spine isn't loaded when you're laying on the bench. Laughing emoji. That is the stupidest thing I have ever heard somebody say online. The spine isn't loaded when you're laying on the bench? Of course it's loaded. I mean, of course it's not loaded as if you were doing like a back squat or a front squat or a deadlift, but it's still loaded, especially when you do like powerlifting and you got like those freaking giant freaking gay arches and stuff like that. That is load on the spine. It may be like the upper spine, but it's still load on the spine regardless. And then he said, you don't need to bracing it like a squat or deadlift. The stability required to bench is in the upper body, which holding your breath and arching your back helps with. And that's when I looked at this guy's account and I realized that he's a power lifter. And so that's when I started to realize maybe power lifters do things differently than how normal people should lift weights in the gym. And I was like, okay, this guy's a power lifter. He does like the freaking arch on the bench and stuff like that. And so again, I was reflecting on this comment. I was like, okay, maybe for power lifters, the bench press and core bracing is different for them. So I reflected on it and I was like, you know what? This guy's a power lifter. I'm gonna go to his account and look for a video of him with somebody doing the core brace. That's what I said. I said, dude, like I said, it might be my explanation, but I left you a comment on one of your videos where I found out what I'm talking about. There you go. So I went to this guy's account, like I said, right? And I found one video, because I don't know if he's a coach or something, but I found one video of one of his friends or clients bench pressing, and it was a powerlifting bench. And I think it was 1 or 2 reps, and he had that super huge arch in his back, right? That powerlifters do, right? And I watched the video. He may have already had his core brace before the first rep, but when he went for that second rep, guess what he did? He was breathing into his stomach and braced his core and hit that second rep of the bench press, and then he re-racked his weights. And I was like, dude, you literally have a video on your own account proving you wrong, proving me right. And so I was like, what is the point here? And so I commented on that video. I said, hey dude, not to be rude or anything, but this is exactly what I'm talking about. This guy in this video braces his core before he hits that second rep, and you can tell because in the video his stomach expands and his back not straightens out, but you can tell it gets firm again before he hits that second rep. And I told him, this is exactly what I'm talking about. And then guess what? Like an hour or 2 later, he must have deleted that video or something, or he hid it because now I can't find it on his page anymore. And then he stopped responding to my comments on that original video. And so that's when I knew, like, boom! That's when I knew right there, like, that's how you know that I know what the fuck I'm talking about. So don't come at me with that bullshit. And then that was pretty much the end of it. I said, what I'm mentioning is safe and proper lifting technique, and you know it. Laughing yourself off and saying I'm wrong and then throwing large numbers around doesn't make you better than anyone else, because it doesn't. I can't believe you consider yourself to be a fitness content creator with that attitude and mindset. And so that was pretty much basically it. All the other comments in this video were just people thanking me for the clarification on the breathing of the bench press.